Hey guys! First of all, tell me, which country are you watching this from? Today I've got a shocking and emotional story for you. After watching this, you'll see how sometimes a simple gathering can completely change everything. So let's get started and find out what Ryan walked into that night that changed his life forever. 2 years had passed since my marriage to Ryan, and if someone looked at our life from the outside, they would say we were one of those perfect couples. The ones who post happy pictures, romantic captions, and weekend trips on social media. We looked stable. We looked happy. We looked complete. But none of that was real anymore. Inside our home, behind closed doors, things were slowly falling apart in ways no one could see. In the first year, Ryan used to talk, laugh, share stories about work, and even argue playfully. We used to stay up late just talking about life, dreams, and stupid little things. But somewhere during the second year, something inside him changed. It didn't happen suddenly. It was quiet, slow, like watching someone fade in front of you while you stand there helpless. Ryan stopped talking. Not because he didn't love me, but because he started drowning in a silence I couldn't reach. Every day had become a routine. He woke up, dressed for work, barely touched breakfast and left. When he came back, he looked tired in a way that wasn't physical. It was deeper, like something was eating him from the inside. Most evenings, he didn't even remove his tie for an hour. He would sit on the couch, staring at nothing, lost in thoughts he never shared. Sometimes he'd get up in the middle of dinner and say he wasn't hungry anymore. Other times he would lie down early and pretend to be asleep, just so he wouldn't have to talk. And me. I sat there next to him, feeling like a stranger in my own marriage. I tried asking him gently, "Ryan, are you okay? Is something bothering you? You don't talk anymore, what's going on?" He always gave the same answer in the same flat tone. "I'm fine, Maya. I'm just tired." But it wasn't just tiredness. It was something else. Something heavier. There were nights when I woke up and found him standing near the window, staring outside with his arms folded tightly across his chest. He didn't hear me wake up. He didn't see me watching him. He stood there as if he was fighting a battle completely alone, and losing. Sometimes he rubbed his forehead, sometimes he clenched his jaw, sometimes he just sat on the floor with his head down. He wasn't the Ryan I married, but he was still the man I loved. And even though he pushed the world away, I knew he was hurting. I just didn't know why. 'Cause he never let me in. The silence between us grew heavier each week. Not angry silence. Not cold silence. Just empty silence. A silence filled with everything he refused to say. I tried being patient. I tried giving him space. I tried being more present, more gentle, more available. But nothing worked. One day, after another quiet, uncomfortable dinner, something inside me cracked. Not in anger, but in fear. Fear that I was losing him. Fear that he was losing himself. Fear that if I didn't do something soon, our marriage would slip away without a single fight. So I made a decision. A strange, risky, emotional decision. I walked to the bedroom, picked up my phone, and typed a message that I knew would get his attention. "Come home early tonight. There's a small casual gathering." I stared at the message for a long time before pressing send. There was no gathering, no guest, no dinner plan. What I planned was something completely different. Something only for him. Something that might finally make him talk. What I didn't know was that this simple message, a casual gathering, would lead to the most unexpected, emotional, and shocking night of our lives. When Ryan replied to my message with a simple, "Okay, I'll be home early," my heart beat faster than I expected. It wasn't excitement. It was fear. And hope mixed together. All day I kept thinking, what if he gets irritated? What if he feels tricked? What if he shuts down even more? But then another thought pushed through. What if this is the only chance I have to reach him? So I spent the entire afternoon preparing the house. Not like a party, not like a celebration, but like a soft, emotional space where he could finally breathe. I dimmed the lights to a warm golden tone, the kind of light that makes a room feel safe and gentle. I placed 2 small lamps on opposite sides of the living room so there wouldn't be any sharp shadows. Soft, quiet air filled the room. Calm, steady, peaceful. Then I brought out a small wooden box where I had kept our old photos. Photos from our early days. Our first coffee date, our first road trip, our goofy selfies, our first anniversary dinner. I placed 7 to 8 of those pictures neatly on the center table, letting each one speak its own story. Next, I took out a small envelope and placed it right in the middle of the table. Inside that envelope was a handwritten letter. A letter I had written after crying quietly in the bathroom the night before. A letter I rewrote 3 different times because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The letter wasn't long. It wasn't poetic. It was honest. It said, "Ryan, you carry everything alone. But you don't have to. Tonight is for you. Just answer one thing. Are you hurting?" After placing the envelope on the table, I cleaned the house again, even though it was already clean. It wasn't about cleanliness. It was about calming my nerves. Every second felt heavy. The clock kept ticking, and with each tick, the moment grew closer. The moment Ryan would walk into a gathering that didn't really exist. Around 7:50 p.m., I heard a car door outside. My heart stopped for a second. I rushed to the mirror, fixed my hair, wiped my face, and tried to look normal. Not anxious, not tense, not like someone planning an emotional ambush. But inside I was shaking. At 7:55, the front door clicked. Froze. The door opened slowly, and Ryan stepped inside. He looked tired as usual. His shoulders drooped, his eyes dim, his steps slow. But then he looked around the room. No guests, no noise, no food on the table, no signs of a party. Just dim lights, our photos, and a single envelope. His eyebrows pulled together. His face tightened in confusion. He turned to me. "Maya, what is this?" His voice wasn't angry, but it carried tension, like he wasn't sure if he should be worried or frustrated. I swallowed hard. "This is the gathering," I whispered. He blinked. "What gathering? There's no one here." I stepped forward slowly and pointed at the table. "This is just for us. For you." Ryan stared at me for a long moment. Then he walked toward the table, his footsteps heavy, slow, unsure. He picked up the envelope, turning it in his hands. "For me?" he asked softly, almost confused. "Yes," I said. "Only for you." With a quiet breath, he opened the envelope. As he read the first line, his expression changed. As he reached the last line, his eyes softened, then darkened, then filled with something heavy, something I had been waiting to see for months. Emotion. Not anger. Not irritation. Not frustration. Something deeper. Something real. He swallowed hard, closed the letter slowly, and sat down without saying a word. And that silence, for the first time, wasn't empty. It was full. Full of all the things he had kept buried inside him. Full of everything he never said. And I felt it. This was the beginning, not the end. Ryan sat down slowly, the letter still in his hands. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at the photos. He just stared at the floor, as if his entire world had suddenly shifted under his feet. I had seen him tired before. I had seen him stressed before. But this was different. This was a man finally facing something he had run from for months. I sat across from him, quietly. I didn't want to break the moment. I didn't want to push him or rush him. His breathing changed. Deep, uneven, a little shaky. "Ryan," I said softly, "you don't have to talk if you don't want to. I just need you to know you're not alone." He closed his eyes for a second, pressing his fingers into his forehead, as if trying to steady himself. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "I didn't know you noticed." My heart squeezed. I noticed everything. He finally lifted his head and looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in a long time. His eyes were glossy, like he was holding back tears he wasn't ready to release. "You weren't supposed to see me like this," he said quietly. "Like what?" I asked. "Like someone who's losing control," he replied. He exhaled shakily and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Maya, I'm tired. It's like I'm carrying something I can't put down. I try to get through the day. But every night I feel empty. And I didn't want to burden you with it. Those words hit me harder than anything else. Because the whole time I thought he was pulling away from me. He was actually trying to protect me. Ryan, I said gently, you're my husband. Your pain isn't a burden. Keeping it inside is. His jaw tightened. His eyes dropped again. It's not that simple. His voice cracked slightly, but he controlled it. Then something unexpected happened. He reached for one of our photos on the table, the one from our first road trip. The photo where he was laughing so hard he couldn't even pose properly. He stared at it for almost a minute. I miss this version of me, he whispered. The one who could laugh. The one who wasn't scared of everything. I felt my eyes burn, but I kept myself steady. You're still that person, I said softly. You just forgot him for a while. He didn't answer, but the letter was still in his hand. And he held it tightly, almost like it was something keeping him grounded. Then he finally spoke, his voice low. When I walked in and saw the lights, the photos, I thought you were going to tell me something bad. But instead, you're asking me if I'm hurting. That's because you are, I replied. And you don't have to pretend anymore. His shoulders slumped. His whole body softened, like a man who had finally stopped fighting himself. There was a long pause, the kind of silence that holds weight, sadness, and truth all at once. Then, without warning, Ryan whispered, Maya, I'm scared. Those 3 words shattered me. He had never, not once, admitted fear, weakness, or doubt. Not to anyone. Not even to me. In that moment, the walls he built around himself for months finally started cracking. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt him coming back to me. Not through words. Not through affection. But through honesty. Raw, trembling honesty. That revealed just how broken he had become. And I knew. The night was only just beginning. The real truth was still waiting to come out. The truth he had hidden deeper than everything else. For a few seconds after Ryan said, I'm scared, the room fell into a silence so heavy it felt like the air itself had thickened. I didn't rush him. I didn't touch him. I just waited, giving him space to feel what he had been avoiding for months. He took a slow breath, but it broke halfway. His hands trembled. His chest rose and fell unevenly, like he was fighting himself. Maya, he finally whispered, I didn't want you to think I was weak. That sentence cut through me like a knife. Ryan, I said softly, being human isn't weakness. Suffering isn't weakness. Hiding it is. He shook his head, eyes focused on the photographs on the table, but his voice kept shaking. You've always been strong. You always know what to do. I started falling apart and I didn't want to become another problem for you. Another problem, I repeated, shocked. He rubbed his hands together, unable to meet my eyes. You already handle so much. The house, the bills, the family expectations. And I kept thinking if I added my issues on top of that, you'd start regretting choosing me. That hit me harder than anything else he'd said. Regretting you, I whispered. Ryan, I married you because I wanted a life with you, not a perfect man who never struggles. His eyes glistened. He inhaled sharply, trying to stay composed, but the cracks were showing, deep, painful cracks. Then, slowly, he lowered his head into his hands. His shoulders shook. Not dramatically, not loudly, just a quiet, heartbreaking tremor of a man who had carried too much for too long. It was the kind of breakdown that comes only when someone finally feels safe enough to fall apart. He tried to hide his face, but I moved closer and sat beside him silently. He didn't look up. He didn't speak. And then, a single tear fell onto the letter in his hands. That was the moment I knew his walls were gone. Maya, he whispered, voice cracking. I'm losing control of everything. My mind, my energy, my confidence. I wake up scared. I go to work scared. I come home scared. His breathing hitched as he continued. I feel like I'm failing at being a husband. Failing at being me. And I didn't know how to tell you without disappointing you. My heart broke. Not because he cried, but because he had suffered all of this silently right next to me. You never disappointed me, I said quietly. The only thing that hurt me was watching you struggle alone. He covered his mouth with his hand, trying to hide the sob that escaped him, a sound so raw and honest that it made the room feel different. More real, more fragile, more human. Maya, he whispered again, voice trembling. I'm scared of the person I'm becoming. I placed my hand gently on his back, not pushing, not forcing, just grounding him. Ryan, I whispered, you're not becoming someone else. You're just tired, exhausted, overwhelmed, and you don't have to fight it alone. Not tonight. Not anymore. He closed his eyes, letting the moment sink in. For the first time in months, he wasn't shutting me out. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't holding himself together for the sake of looking strong. This was the real Ryan. The vulnerable Ryan. The Ryan I had been waiting to hear for so long. And I knew. We were getting closer to the truth. The deeper truth. The part of his life he still hadn't revealed. The part that would shock me more than I ever expected. After what felt like an eternity of quiet tears and heavy breathing, Ryan finally lowered his hands from his face. He wiped the tears quickly, almost embarrassed, but I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. I just waited, letting him find the courage to continue. He took a deep breath, and then the words came out in a whisper. Hesitant, scared, but undeniable. Maya. There's something I haven't told you. Something I've been hiding for months. My stomach sank. I had been expecting stress, anxiety, maybe work pressure. But the way he said it, I knew it was something deeper. He hesitated again, as if the next words would break him completely. Then he looked straight at me, his eyes wide, vulnerable. I've been struggling with serious anxiety and depression. For months. Maybe longer. I didn't want you to know because I didn't want to worry you. Or see you disappointed in me. My heart stopped. I had suspected he was unhappy, yes. I had noticed the silence, the tension, the exhaustion. But I never imagined it was this deep. I never imagined Ryan, the man I thought was always in control, had been battling demons this heavy. All while keeping up appearances. He continued, voice shaky. I've been going to work, pretending everything is fine. I've been managing bills, keeping up with friends, smiling. While inside I feel like I'm drowning. Every day. And I didn't tell anyone. Not you. Not my parents. Not my friends. I felt tears sting my own eyes, but I held them back. Because this moment wasn't about me. It was about him, finally being seen, finally being heard. He swallowed hard, looking down at the envelope in his hands. The letter I had written. You asked me if I was hurting, he said. I didn't think anyone could see me like this and still care. I reached for his hand, placing mine over it. Ryan, I don't just care. See you. Every part of you. And I want to help you carry this. Not because you're weak. But because you deserve support. Because we're partners, not just in good times, but in everything. He exhaled slowly, the weight on his chest seeming to lighten. Just slightly, just enough to breathe. Then came the next shock. He pulled out a small folder from under the table, hesitant, trembling. These are my medical reports, he admitted softly. I didn't tell you because I was ashamed. Because I didn't want you to see me like this. But I guess tonight you deserve the truth. I took the folder carefully. The pages were filled with notes, test results, and documentation from doctors and therapists. Reading them, I realized how long he had suffered silently. How serious it had become. How deeply it had affected him. His sleep, his energy, his confidence, his very sense of self. I looked up at him, and he was staring at me, waiting for a reaction. Instead of fear, frustration, or disappointment, I felt an overwhelming surge of love and empathy. This changes nothing, I whispered. It doesn't make you less of a husband, less of a man. It makes you human. And it makes me want to fight with you, not against you. Ryan's eyes welled up again, this time with relief. For months, he had hidden the storm inside him. Tonight he had finally let it out. And though the night had already shaken me to my core, I realized this was only the beginning. The beginning of real healing. The beginning of trust rebuilt. The beginning of the Ryan I had always known. The one behind the smile, behind the armor, behind the silence. The night was quiet, but the air in the room felt electric. Ryan had finally opened up, revealing months of hidden pain, anxiety, and the truth about his medical condition. I could feel the tension slowly dissolve, replaced by something fragile but powerful: honesty. I reached for his hand, holding it tightly. Ryan, we can face this together. I promise you won't carry this alone anymore. He looked at me, his eyes shimmering, the weight of months of silence and hidden suffering still evident. I don't know how to start, he whispered. I've been a shell, pretending for so long. I smiled softly. You start by trusting me. Let me in, like tonight. We sat in silence for a few minutes, letting the emotions settle. But then, something shifted in his expression. There was a spark in his eyes. Determination, not despair. Maya, there's something else, he said, voice low but firm. Someone at work, someone I trusted, has been trying to ruin me. Spreading lies, sabotaging my career. I've been holding it in because I didn't want to drag you into my mess. Froze. All this time, he had been protecting me not only from his own struggles but also from external threats I hadn't even noticed. He continued, his jaw tight, eyes burning. Tonight, I realized I can't stay silent anymore. I can't let them take over my life while I hide in fear. I have to fight for myself, for us. Felt my pulse quicken. The man I thought was broken was now planning his comeback. And I realized, this was the revenge he had been holding inside. A quiet, calculated power waiting for the right moment. Then fight, I whispered. Not alone, but together. He nodded slowly, a sense of clarity washing over him. It wasn't about anger. It was about justice, standing up against those who tried to harm him. It was about reclaiming his life and our life on his own terms. We spent the next hour planning. Not in haste, not out of spite, but with precision, patience, and courage. Ryan laid out what had happened, the people involved, and how we could protect ourselves and restore his reputation. And through it all I realized something. The night wasn't just about his breakdown or the shocking truths or even the threats we now faced. It was about trust, love, and partnership. It was about finally being seen and finally being heard by someone who mattered more than anyone else in the world. By the time the clock struck midnight, Ryan was different. Not perfect, not unscarred, but unafraid. Honest. Ready to fight for us and for himself. And I knew one thing for certain. Sometimes the most shocking gatherings aren't about parties, laughter, or casual conversations. They're about truth, courage, and the kind of love that doesn't turn away, even when everything else seems lost. That night we didn't just survive. We became unstoppable. And as for those who tried to harm him, let's just say, the next moves were carefully calculated. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't loud. It's patient, deliberate, and comes after the truth is finally revealed. Ryan and I sat together, holding hands, tears mixed with relief and determination. We had faced the darkness. His, mine, and the world's, and we were stronger than ever. And from that night on, nothing could break us again. What a night that was. Ryan finally opened up, the truth came out, and everything changed between us. I hope this story shows you that sometimes even small moments can reveal the biggest truths. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and tell me, what would you have done if you were in Ryan's place? Also, share where you're watching from. I love reading all your messages. And remember, sometimes the most powerful moments happen when we least expect them. See you in the next story.